one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is supposed to stand for one of the most fundamental rights of every American citizen in the United States, which is freedom. Prayer in school is something that our society, and especially our children, have been without for over 50 years. The Constitution of the United States gives us all protected rights under the First Amendment, and one of those is freedom of religion. And because of this is why I feel prayer should be allowed back into our public schools. Today, I'd like to discuss with you, first, what prayer is and why it's so important. Next, our rights as Americans when it comes to religion and prayer, and our rights to practice our religion as we see fit. Then, what's happened to our society since prayer and God has been taken out of our schools. And lastly, why prayer should be allowed in schools for students and teachers, and why we need to take a stand to bring it back. Much of the information I will be sharing with you today comes from the Holy Bible, fine law, and the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. Let's begin by discussing what prayer is and why it's important. Prayer is a solemn request for help or expression of thanks addressed to God or an object of worship. Prayer is a direct line to heaven in our communication process so that we may talk directly with God. He wants us to stay in contact with Him. Prayer should be like talking to your best friend or your family member, because when you're talking to them, you know that they love you unconditionally. Give all your worries and cares to God, for He cares about what happens to you. 1 Peter 5:7. Without prayer, how would we ask for forgiveness of our sins, tell God our needs, or thank Him for all the sacrifices He's made for us? For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believed in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. John 3:16. Now that you know what prayer is and why it is so important to pray, I'd like to talk to you about our rights as Americans to practice our religion and pray, and what our government's thoughts are about this. Our rights as Americans are to be able to express ourselves and practice our religions and religious practices freely. On June 25th, 1962, in Engel versus Vitale, the United States Supreme Court ruled that school-sponsored prayer and Bible readings violated the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. The First Amendment is about freedom of speech, and prayer is a freedom of speech. By taking away this right to pray in school, they have taken away our First Amendment rights as American citizens. Prayer has now been replaced with a moment of silence, where students and teachers may stand quietly to pray or meditate. Government concerns are different from God's concerns. God is the one that we should be listening to. Now I'd like to talk to you about what has happened since the 1962 court ruling in our society. Do you know what happened to our society since prayer and God was taken out of our school system? Well, let me tell you. According to the U.S. Bureau of Census, criminal arrest of teens is up 150%. Teen suicides in teens 15 to 19 is at 450%, according to the National Center of Health Services. According to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, illegal drug activity is up 600%, and violent crimes has risen 350% because of lack of morality figures for your youth today. Last, let me give you some reasons why prayer should be allowed in schools. There are many reasons students and teachers alike should be allowed to pray at school. Prayer for some is simply a tradition. Second, prayer is a way for students to reflect on what may be going on around them. Prayer is also something students can turn to when they feel their moral values are being tested. And lastly, prayer is a way of life for some, and is a way for them to find peace and comfort in unpeaceful situations. Today, I have shared with you why I think prayer should be back into our school systems. I explained to you what prayer was and why it was important. I discussed with you our rights as American citizens, and then I told you what has happened to our society since prayer was abolished. And finally, I shared with you reasons why prayer should be allowed back in our schools. There are Christians out there that believe in the power of prayer and have experienced firsthand the miracles that can occur because of it. People have to understand that believing everyone has the right of freedom of religion that it also means people of other religions will also have the right to practice how they seem fit. Any individual who truly believes in their faith, whatever that faith may be, should not be offended by seeing someone else practice their faith how they seem fit. It is the right of every American to be able to express their religious freedoms how they want, when they want, and where they want. This is why I believe prayer should be allowed back into our public schools. Thank you.